You finally have nothing to do, and that's exactly when your shoulders refuse to come down. The day is quiet. The list is finished. There's no message you need to answer, no problem sitting in front of you, nothing that needs deciding right now. And still, something in you stays gathered, like you're holding the edge of a moment that hasn't arrived. You might have noticed this before, that the hardest hours aren't always the ones that leave you most wound up. Sometimes it's the empty afternoon, the slow Sunday, the hour when everything is handled and there's finally room to rest, and your body treats that room like the most uncertain part of the day. It can feel confusing, even a little embarrassing, because if someone asked you what was wrong, you wouldn't have an answer. Nothing is wrong. That's the strange part. The discomfort isn't attached to anything you can point to. So, you start to wonder if the problem is you. But I'd offer a different way of seeing it. Your body isn't reacting to nothing. It's reacting to the quiet itself. Somewhere along the way, calm stopped feeling like rest and started feeling like a question, like the pause before something. And so, when life finally goes still, a part of you doesn't soften. It starts listening harder. This is one of the quieter truths about a mind that has spent a long time staying ready. It comes to associate stillness not with safety, but with exposure. When a lot is happening, you have somewhere to put all that readiness. But when everything settles, the readiness has nowhere to go. And instead of dissolving, it turns inward and waits. You may know the feeling without ever having named it. The sense that calm is borrowed, that this peaceful moment is real but temporary, and the smart thing is to enjoy it lightly, with one hand still on the door. That's not a flaw in your character. It's a pattern that made sense once. Somewhere in your history, there were stretches where the calm moments were the ones that ended fastest, where bad news arrived on ordinary days, where letting your guard down once cost you something, and a body that lives through enough of those stops, trusting the quiet. It quietly decides that the safest time to relax is never quite now. So it keeps a small amount of itself held back. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough that you never fully arrive anywhere. And here's the part that's easy to miss. You're not choosing this. By the time you notice the feeling, your body has already made the decision for you. The holding happens underneath thought, in the background, like a hum you only hear when the rest of the room goes silent. Which is exactly why it shows up most when nothing else is competing for your attention. The quiet doesn't create the feeling. The quiet just reveals what was already running. There's a version of this that lives in your evenings. You get into bed and your body is tired, genuinely tired, but it doesn't release. It lies down without lying down. The day is over, and somewhere inside there's a sensation, like a room that's been tidied but not emptied. Everything's in its place, and still it doesn't feel finished. And there's a version that lives in your mornings before anything has even happened. You wake, and before the day has asked anything of you, you're already meeting it with a kind of low effort, as if the day asks for something before it's even begun. As if living is something to get through rather than be inside of. There's a way this shows up in good moments too. Something nice happens, a piece of good news, an easy conversation, a stretch where you actually feel content, and almost immediately, a quieter part of you begins inspecting it, looking for the edge, waiting for the cost. As if joy that isn't watched carefully might turn into a setup. You don't do this on purpose. It's just that somewhere you came to believe that the moment you fully trust something good is the moment it's most likely to be taken. So even your pleasure comes with a chaperone. You might also notice that the only time you truly come undone is when you're too tired to keep it up. Not when you decide to rest. Not when conditions are finally right. But when you simply run out of the fuel it takes to stay gathered, and you drop into a sleep that feels less like peace and more like a power cut. And then you wake, and the gathering quietly resumes. Because rest by collapse was never really rest. It was just the holding being interrupted. And underneath all of it, there's often a belief so quiet you've never said it out loud. That peace is something you have to earn. That you're allowed to rest only once everything is handled, every loose end closed, every possible problem accounted for. But the list never empties. There's always one more thing that could be checked. So, the permission to fully rest never quite arrives. You keep waiting to deserve the stillness you're already inside of. What makes this so hard to undo is the logic underneath it. Part of you believes that staying gathered is what keeps things from going wrong. That your readiness is doing something. That if you fully let down, you'd be caught off guard. And being caught off guard feels like the most dangerous thing of all. So, the Holden becomes a kind of insurance. A tax you pay against being surprised. But notice the trap in it. Because nothing ever happens that proves the readiness worked. The quiet day passes. Nothing goes wrong. And instead of feeling like proof you could have relaxed, it feels like the readiness did its job. Your body never gets the message that it was safe to put the weight down. It only learns that holding on was followed by getting through, so it holds on again tomorrow. This is why the feeling never seems to update. You can have 100 ordinary evenings, and the 101st still finds you a little held, a little watchful, waiting for the version of the night where something finally goes wrong. I want to slow down here, because this is the part that tends to land. You're not staying gathered because you're weak or dramatic or ungrateful for the calm life you have. You're staying gathered because some part of you came to believe that arriving fully, being completely here, completely undefended, was something it couldn't afford. And that part of you isn't trying to ruin your peace. It's trying to make sure you're never hurt by the moment you stopped watching. It's protective. It's just exhausted and outdated, and working far harder than your actual life requires anymore. And maybe that's the gentlest place to begin. Not by forcing your body to release, which it won't do on command anyway, and which only adds one more task to the pile, but by understanding that the holding was never irrational. It was an answer to a question your life used to ask, and mostly doesn't ask anymore. You don't have to convince the quiet to feel safe today. You don't have to talk your shoulders down. You only have to notice that the feeling isn't a verdict on your life. It's an echo, the habit of a part of you that learned to treat peace as the moment before and never got the chance to learn that sometimes the calm is just calm. The unfinished feeling in the tidied room, the morning effort before the day, the evening that ends without ending. None of it means something is wrong with you. It means you've been doing a quiet job for a long time, and no one ever told you that you were allowed to set it down. Not all at once, but a little. You might find that the holding doesn't vanish the moment you understand it. That's all right. It loosens slowly in a body that's allowed to feel what it feels without being corrected. But there's something steadying in simply knowing what you're looking at. That the discomfort in the quiet isn't a sign of danger. It's the sound of a part of you that has been on watch for a very long time, finally being noticed. And being noticed is not the same as being fixed. But it's where the holding first begins to soften.
If this spoke to something real inside you, stay connected. There's more to explore within. And if you feel ready, you can subscribe and walk this path step by step.